Don't you just love going to the movie theaters with that one friend who is constantly asking you if you saw that? Like, really, what else would I be looking at? The bald spot on the dude's head in front of me? I'm literally staring at the screen every second. I paid about $50 to be in here. The popcorn is so salty, it's making my jaw disintegrate. My ass is so itchy from sitting on these ridiculously disgusting seats. Of course I'm looking at the screen. What else would I be doing? Anyways, today's video, pretty dead serious. We're talking about more MCU topics, and today we're going to be talking a little bit about this entire Jonathan Majors situation. Well, not really. I'll briefly give you guys a quick recap on exactly what happened with Jonathan Majors in case you're not too familiar with the entire situation. Essentially, Disney has decided to move on from him. He's been fired from the entire MCU project, and it seems like he's going to be blacklisted from Hollywood as a whole. He was found guilty of like minor harassment or assault, something along those lines, and then he was sentenced to like a year of domestic violence counseling. I'm not sure how that exactly works, but he's supposed to attend this for 1 year instead of going to prison. And no, there's no double standard here. From my understanding of the entire case, it was just really difficult to find evidence of Jonathan Majors actually assaulting the woman. I think the videos, and I've seen a couple of videos floating online, it seems like potentially maybe Jonathan Majors was trying to remove himself from the entire situation, and his significant other or this woman was not allowing him to. So the details are not as clear as we would like them to be, but I'm not really going to get too deep into it. I think relationships are a little bit gray sometimes. They're not always black and white. There's not always a hero or a villain, and in this particular situation we don't have all of the evidence. We don't have all of the details, so I'm definitely not going to give my opinion on the entire ordeal. I think it would be unfair, but as is, he has been found guilty, and I think if I read an article correctly, he's supposed to appeal eventually, or he already has by the moment of this recording. But the reason that we're making this video is not to really talk about Jonathan Majors' situation, but it's more of the fallout for the MCU, because now they have to move on from Jonathan Majors. He has been fired, and look, there's definitely a possibility that they decide to recast Kang, and this is probably the most financially viable option just because they've already established the universe, the storyline, and regardless of where you stand on the whole Jonathan Majors situation, we can all at least agree that he did an absolutely phenomenal job as Kang. So it would just be easy to bring in like an up-and-coming actor or somebody that would fit the role perfectly. On the other hand, if they decided to scrap the entire project, they would have to reshoot a bunch of stuff, potentially change some endings to some of the films. It would also be a lot less complex to go this route, but it is always incredibly fun to speculate about some potential villains being introduced into the MCU if they decide to scrap the entire Kang storyline, which is a very real world possibility. And I thought I would float some of the different possibilities here and see what you guys have to say. Let me know down below, what villain would you like to see replace Kang, or would you like to see them continue with the entire Kang storyline? But the first one that popped into my head, and only because we are just about a month away from seeing the new Deadpool Wolverine film, and that is to introduce the X-Men universe. And well, we can now explore the possibility of having Magneto as a villain in the MCU. Now granted, he is definitely not going to raise the stakes as much as like Thanos, Kang, and all of these other big time villains, but Magneto was always a huge presence and a threat in the MCU. Not only that, as I already mentioned, you could slowly but methodically introduce a lot of the different mutants in the Marvel universe. Let's not forget that Disney now owns all of those properties. We just saw the X-Men animated rebooted series on Disney Plus, and if that's any indication of what the Fox universe is going to look like in the MCU, it is definitely a very exciting proposition. And even though Magneto is probably the most recognizable villain in the mutant universe, there are still some other pretty big villains that you could build up to. The Sentinel Army, for example, has always always been a very intricate part of the X-Men universe. But it doesn't stop there. You could integrate Mr. Sinister into the MCU. You could even revisit the entire Apocalypse storyline. I'm rambling, but my point is the entire X-Men universe is still very much unexplored, and maybe this is a good opportunity. Maybe this is a signal to move in a completely different direction. There was also a rumor floating around a few years ago that they were potentially playing around with the idea of having Doctor Doom introduced into the MCU as well. Obviously that hasn't come to fruition, but it's yet another villain that could be introduced, and he's always had a very interesting backstory. I also briefly mentioned in the previous video that I uploaded to the channel that I thought that maybe they were going to introduce Null into the Sonyverse, but if for any reason he isn't, he is yet another phenomenal villain that is actually from modern comics. If I'm not mistaken, he made his first appearance just about like 4 to 5 years ago in one of the Venom comic book runs, and there's actually a big epic team up in the Marvel comic book universe that ultimately leads to some deaths and some great epic battles. I think we can all definitely agree that seeing the MCU in absolute shambles is probably one of the most painful things we've ever had to witness. Unless you've had to like shove a baby out of your body, then I guess maybe that tops it, or maybe it's an equal amount of pain. I don't know. I've never gone through childbirth, but all I can say is that it is incredibly painful, just because we know that there are some phenomenal projects in the horizon, but they just don't seem to be intertwined or connected as well as we would love to see them. We do have the Fantastic Four project in the foreseeable future. We have the Captain America franchise still continuing with its 4th entry. There's a new Agatha series that's supposed to be coming out really soon. Again, what place that has in the future of the MCU, we'll have to see, but it just seems like all of these weird little spin-offs or all these universes, but they just don't seem to connect. There just isn't that unity that the original MCU had, and it's just really sad. I hopefully they're able to figure something out. I believe if there is a plan for the future, it will more than likely be revealed at the Deadpool Wolverine film, maybe like an after credit scene of some kind. Hopefully it's not one of these like Doctor Strange really weird spin-off films that don't really connect. They're not really introducing anything new. They're not moving the universe in any one specific direction. It's kind of just like random after credit scenes for the sake of having after credit scenes. There's just not much to it, and so like I said, really painful, really sad to see. But if I had to take a guess, if I had to speculate on what we could potentially see from the Marvel Cinematic Universe for the foreseeable future, I honestly feel they're going to move away from the Jonathan Majors Kang storyline, or just Kang in general. I do believe that they're going to replace Kang with a new villain, and I think that this is the perfect opportunity for them to introduce the mutants, which I think they potentially will within the next couple of years. We'll start to hear rumors and things of that nature. Just because the animated series was so well received, I think that Disney's going to try to capitalize on that. But that's just my personal opinion, my personal take. Like I said, the news is pretty scarce out there. There is some stuff being kind of thrown around, but nothing concrete. I don't think that even Disney or Kevin Feige know exactly what it is that they're going to do, and I don't think that they have a clear-cut direction as of this moment. But like I said, that is just my personal take, my personal opinion. I am very, very curious to see what you guys have to say down below in the comments section. Thank you guys so much for tuning in, spending a little bit of time with us. Stay safe out there, and I will see you guys in the next one.